module 3 was about your why, the future self calling you, right? And having a better understanding about what creating a why means, right? I think a lot of business owners think that creating a why is something that's fancy and goes on your website and it's a mission statement or it's a nice paragraph of your vision and your values. And the reality is that the future self needs to become this actual real entity in your mind. When you think about a moment in time in the past, you feel things and you experience things almost like you're reliving it all over again. But you're not there. You're here, and you have a better more conceptualized idea about that memory. And that's exactly what we need to do about your future self that's doing even better than how you are now. What is up, Heather? All I can think to myself is, how can I insert the song, Hey There Delilah, what's it like in New York City? Because you are 1,000 miles away from me and I'm sure you look really pretty. Heather, I know you're not in New York City, but today is day 2 of me making the commitment to you to do all the modules and to get this group off the ground. And I swear I do not feel good, and every bone in my body is not as excited as it was yesterday. I even brought my support drink. But believe it or not, I did 3 modules today, okay? I did 2 yesterday, and today I did 3. And let me tell you what I have taught in these modules so that we can find more founders for my Founders Club. For those of you who don't know, Heather knows, we know that I'm starting a 5 group cohort of founding members to start for free in July to watch. They're coming out at like 15 minutes or less every single day for 30 days, and we'll meet once a week for Q&A or extra bits of information. And there's a little bit of homework, but the whole idea is to make it small and applicable, bite-sized pieces, okay? So the monster's really carbonated, but we're here. Oh, I wore this sweater, by the way. I went on a podcast, and I think it's supposed to launch here in June, so we'll see. But I wore this sweater on the podcast, and I was featured on someone else's podcast, if you could believe it or not. And the whole premise of this sweater is to burn the boats, and it's to make the commitment, right? So if you don't know the story, Heather, Vikings went over to an island to overcome the island, and they sailed there, and then they burned the boats in order to make the commitment that we are going to take this island over. And I wore it today because I feel horrible. I feel so sick. But I made the commitment, and you only need 3 days to start a habit, supposedly. Today's day 2, that I was going to get these modules done and that we were going to get this work done, because I have so much excitement when it comes to being able to share what I know with you. So today I did modules 3 through 5. It's a little bit extensively. I get really sick and tired of talking to myself, if you could believe it. Okay. So modules 3 was about your why, the future self calling you, right? And having a better understanding about what creating a why means, right? I think a lot of business owners think that creating a why is something that's fancy and goes on your website and it's a mission statement or it's a nice paragraph of your vision and your values, or maybe it's just like a post-it note of like family. Right? Like, it's not that. And the reality is that the future self needs to become this actual real entity in your mind. When you think about a moment in time in the past, you feel things and you experience things almost like you're reliving it all over again. But you're not there. You're here, right? And you have a better um more conceptualized idea about that memory. And that's exactly what we need to do about your future self that's doing even better than how you are now, right? So, Heather, I want you to embody how amazing and emotional it's going to feel to have all four of those books written out and being really wildly successful at selling, and how much of an impact and people's reviews of like, oh my gosh, it made me cry because it just changed my life around, and just how wonderful that makes you feel, and how that actually can be a reality because you create that reality, right? And so I moved into module 4 in the concept of understanding your values as the compass, because what you'll come to realize as you move through some of this stuff is that how you see your future needing to be is what you will find your values being your northern star, right? So, um, you might say integrity or family, right? But values aren't a goal, right? They're an actual direction, right? So you don't finish being a good partner, or you don't complete being courageous and brave. You don't achieve being integrity and tomorrow you think otherwise. Those are just things that you end up living by. And so in the homework, we pressure test. Like, what is it you're actually truly valuing? If you say it's family, but you haven't spoken to your sister in 6 months, maybe you just think the idea of connection is really cool, right? Those two things are different. And then in module 5, I go through and I talk about boundaries as stewardship, because people create these like super negative ideas around boundaries, which is like so interesting to me, right? Because some of them are common sense that you would never question. Why are you closing the bathroom door when you go potty? Because I want privacy, because I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be in the nude, right? Like, there's no question as to why you would close the bathroom door to go to the bathroom, right? But as soon as we start putting up boundaries and edges and containment around our time, right? Or our sense of response, one of the ideas that I had brought up was the fact that uh, not letting others and their urgency of a situation become your emergency, right? Because just because now it's urgent to you doesn't mean it's an emergency to me, right? No one is going to question you closing the bathroom, but people are going to start questioning why don't you make me a priority? Why don't you make this an emergency? Why isn't X, Y, and Z? Why would you hurt me like that? Putting up this boundary, right? And that's just not the framework that we're going to look at setting a boundary as anymore, and really changing it to being stewardship. So, understanding even just one boundary that you can set that would make you a better leader, right? So, I think, especially for me, a boundary I had to set as a therapist, right? Was that I can't work Saturdays. I used to work Saturdays as a new therapist because everybody seemed like they would come in, and now you literally could not pay me $1 million to work on a Saturday. My value of my time and my energy for Saturdays to be experiences and to be adventures and to be my time to be a good partner, right? outweighs the the money, the engagement, the clientele, the need, the desire to work on a Saturday. And so my boundary is that I safeguard my number one role, which is to be a wife, right? And that's something I don't allow people to question about, right? Why don't you work on Saturdays? Why can't you just meet with me on a Saturday? Because I don't want to, right? And I think people pleasers or really young, new, ambitious entrepreneurs, right? Um, Even beginning therapists, anybody almost in the service industry or people pleasers really struggle with that concept of like, I'm going to set a boundary so that others don't have to pay the cost, right? Um, so, like, my husband wouldn't have to pay the cost of not getting to spend time with me on one of his only 2 days off in the week. So, those are my 3 modules for the day. I don't have a lot to add, and my energy is kind of depleted because I do not feel that great. However, I might go back and like re-record them when when we go through them all or um later when I just feel differently, I feel better. Never let Heather, this is my positive vibes, my motivational thing to you. Never let your mood dictate what you said you would do long after the motivation and the ambition and the dream and the excitement has long left. Do the thing. The more you do what you said you were going to do, the more you're going to prove to your subconscious mind that your moods do not control you and you control it. Don't let Mars in retrograde control your body, Heather. And I hope that you have a great day. It's going to be rainy here. Probably going to drink the rest of this monster and find some vibes. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. Bye.